Hey there, I'm Michael Williams, your island chef. Welcome to my kitchen. On today's show, we're going to be tackling comfort foods. You know, those foods that we love to eat and they taste so great, but maybe making us feel a little bit sluggish afterwards. So we're going to lighten them up. We're going to do 3 recipes. First, we're going to start off with a pesto chicken pizza. Then we're going to do squashed mac and cheese. And we'll finish it off with a veggie loaded shepherd's pie. All that coming up on today's show. All right, so we've got some toppings ready to go for our pizza. Let's talk crust, okay? That's the first way you can lighten pizza up. And for starters, we've got some nice thin tortillas, right? Normally pizza's lots of bread, really heavy. Tortilla, like so, you know, really tiny. And I really like this brand of tortillas. I find them, you know, for me, they're kind of the cleanest as far as ingredients go. So that's what we're gonna do today. Another option would actually be to use a portobello mushroom though, okay? So portobellos make a fantastic pizza shell. All you need to do, take out the stem and then scoop out the gills, and you can do that with a spoon really easily. As you can see, the gills just pop right off. These have already been washed. And you can see I'm kind of, you know, doing this a little bit aggressively, trying to get a nice base for which to build my pizza on. Take your portobello now, load it up with some sauce, toppings, cheese, a little bit of oil onto your pan, onto the pan and into the oven it goes, 450 degrees. Bake it just like a normal pizza. Comes out beautiful, okay? The mushroom cooks while the cheese browns and it all comes together just right. You let them cool down a little bit, cut them into quarters, beautiful pizza. Today we're gonna go with the tortilla though. That's another day. So let's talk sauce, shall we? We've got, of course, tomato sauce. Guess what? Refried beans make a great sauce base. But today we're gonna make a pesto. So we're gonna make a really simple pesto right now. Some spinach. We've got our garlic here, some sunflower seeds, and some feta cheese, okay? So what we're gonna do, get a little bit of spinach into our immersion blender bowl, some sunflower seeds, some feta cheese, okay? And a little bit of garlic. Maybe we'll just give it a bit of a choppy chop, head start. Make sure we don't end up with any big chunks, okay? And then olive oil. Now let's grab our immersion blender. All right. So as you can see, pretty darn simple pesto there, hey? Now, we could flavor this up a little. A little bit of, well, you know, the salt's gonna be there already. Add some pepper perhaps, or some other spices. I'm just gonna go real simple right now though. Okay, so let's get into building our pizza. All right, so I'm actually gonna try something here. This just popped into my head. I've never done this before, but I'm gonna try making a little layered pizza. We got our refried beans. Okay, just a really thin layer, which I'm going to put in between 2 tortillas. Okay, now we'll go with our pesto. We don't want too much pesto, just a nice little skim on the bottom. I like a little bit of crust, so I'm not going to take it all the way to the edge. Good. A little bit of chicken. or a lot. I like a lot. And then some sun-dried tomato. This is looking great. My mouth is actually watering already. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now, we need the cheese. So let's grate up some cheese. Now, if you were to use a nice sharp cheese, something aged, then you don't need as much. We were talking earlier, you know, mozzarella kind of overflowing on the big thick dough makes for a really heavy pizza. We're going for something light and airy and gentle on the system, right? So I've got some Parmesan here and some double smoked cheddar, right? Let's grate some of this up. All right, so let's just do up a bit of a blend here. We'll get some of the smoked cheddar, a little bit of the Parmesan. That's the real stuff, by the way, the Reggiano. And then we'll just sprinkle that lightly on top of our pizza. And that is now ready to go into a preheated 450 degree oven. 450 degrees for probably about 12 to 15 minutes should do the trick. Now, all of this is not to say that I don't enjoy a nice deep dish pizza every once in a while, but this is more of a kind of weekly routine kind of thing for me. Now, tidy up a little bit. One of the best ways to kind of lighten up a big heavy pizza meal is by serving it with, say, a salad. How about that? We've got some leftover spinach here. I'm gonna take a little bit of this dressing, right? Look at that, spinach dressing on my spinach salad, okay? Little extra veggies to go with my pizza. That's a good thing. And of course, all the usual suspects apply as far as toppings go. You can do whatever you like, ham, pineapple, pepperoni, anything. It all goes. I'm just gonna continue squaring things away here while our pizza cooks. Hot tip for you, keep a hot soapy sink anytime you start cooking. Pizza's up. Oh boy, how does that look? Gonna cut into this right away. My bean-centered idea looks like it turned out beautiful. So this, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It's looking great. That extra layer with the beans, not only does it give us, you know, some extra nutrition, a little bit of protein and fiber, but hey, makes for a nice texture on our crust. Loving this. There you have it, pesto chicken pizza. I'm gonna finish this off. Next up, we're gonna tackle squashed mac and cheese. All right, so next in line for our lightened up comfort foods, squashed mac and cheese. That's right, we're gonna squeak some squash into our sauce. I'll show you just how to do that right now. Now squash, you know, we'll probably need about 1.5 cups or so, so really, we don't need this whole thing. Let's just go with this. Now this will probably give us about 1.5 cups by my guess. That's about what we're looking for here to make enough sauce. Now normally a mac and cheese sauce is, you know, a roux thickened milk or cream with cheese melted into it. But instead, we're gonna get our thickness and body from our squash. So we'll just cut this into pieces to speed up the cooking process, and I'll show you next how we're gonna cook it. Put our last cut on, and we'll have some diced squash ready to go into our pot. All right, so in goes the squash. Grab the rest. Now we're just gonna turn on our element and just cover it with milk. Okay, and this is gonna be the base of our mac and cheese sauce. Just enough milk to cover. good. Let's season that. Add some minerals with some whole pink salt. Put a little bit of that into our boiling water as well. We're good to go. All right, so we're just gonna let that squash come up to a simmer. And our pasta's cooking away, our macaroni. Once our squash starts to simmer, I'm gonna put a lid on that and lower the temperature, maybe in the reverse order actually, because we don't want that to boil too hard. We're just gonna gently cook. And in the meantime, we're gonna grate some cheese. Let's not forget to give our pasta a stir. We wanna make sure that it's nicely separated and not sticking together. And it looks like our squash is ready for its lid. Now, back to the cheese. We've got a few choices here. Now, today, I'm gonna use this beautiful Gruyere, imported from Switzerland. But of course, cheddar is a good way to go. Smoked cheddar, maybe change it up a little bit. And I'm actually gonna use a little bit of Parmesan, but after, we're gonna get to that. So let's grate up our Gruyere. All right, cut the rind. Now it's time to grind. Now this cheese has a really strong flavor and smell. I love it. Although my little guy might disagree and say that it's a little bit too stinky. So you gotta use what works for you. You've got options. Eight minutes in, this pasta needs to get strained off. All right, so we're just gonna let our pasta steam itself dry a little bit. We don't want watery pasta because that's gonna lead to watery mac and cheese, okay? So after about 15 minutes, 15 to 20, our squash should be nice and soft. Now, don't be concerned if you see that the milk separates. That is to be expected. All right, so squash is soft. Into the blender, it is good to go. So here's how we're gonna throw our sauce together. Squash into blender. A little bit of ricotta cheese in with the squash. And a couple tablespoons of tomato paste. Now, if you wanted to, you could, maybe add a little bit of garlic powder or a touch of pepper at this point, or just keep it nice and plain. Depends on your preferences. But let's get this nice and smooth. So you want to let that run for a good minute or so, get nice and smooth. Came back together beautifully. Now, depending on your blender, you may need to stop and kind of, stir things up a little bit. I've got some good centrifugal force happening in this guy, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now, let's bring it all together, shall we? We're ready. All right, so our pasta is gonna need a bit of a stir. It clumps together a little bit, but that's okay. It'll all, see, it just needs a little bit of action. Now, look at our sauce here. Looking great. I mean, and this is basically squash, right? A little bit of protein kick with the ricotta cheese, a little bit of tomato paste. I mean, this is good quality stuff here. And we're getting a good boatload of nutrition out of it. Stir that up. How's that looking? Okay, we're gonna add some of our beautiful Gruyere. Stir that in. And now this is ready to go into our casserole dish. Now, to be honest, you could just serve it just like this with that cheese melted. Or you can take the extra step that I'm doing right now and bake it and get that nice crispy topped mac and cheese. Okay, finish it off with some more grated cheese, maybe a little bit of grated Parmesan as well. You could go with some fresh chopped parsley if you wanted to add some green. So this is now ready to hop into the oven, okay? We're gonna toss it in 375 till it's nice and brown on top. That'll take about half an hour or so, give or take. I just happen to have one in the oven ready to go. There we go. Looking good, looking really good. I'm gonna give this a try. Now, whether it's like that with the melted cheese, or like that, baked in the oven, crispy, both ways are delicious. Squashed mac and cheese. Next up, we're gonna tackle shepherd's pie. All right, so we are underway on our shepherd's pie. Lost it. Bison shepherd's pie, that is. Not your typical shepherd's pie, though. We're going to be bringing some extra nutrition into this recipe. As you can see, I've got a parsnip here, which is gonna go on top of our potatoes to be steamed, and a little bit of cauliflower as well. So I'm just going to slice that into chunks, fan that out over top. Okay, and that is gonna steam away until soft. Give those guys about 15 or so to soften up. Let's move on to the next step, shall we? First though, get a bit of a tidy in here. Get rid of our compost. Keep our station nice and clean. Now, that's gonna be the veggie component of our shepherd's pie, the mashed potato with a few other veggies in there. Now let's work on the ground, well, normally beef, but in this case, it's going to be bison. We're gonna start off with a little bit of onion. So let's just put a nice fine dice on these onions here. First off, of course, that peel is giving me a bit of grief. I like it when they just slide off in one piece. All right, so nice fine dice. Do up a little bit more here. This is a small onion, so if it's a large onion, I would go with half, but this one was pretty small, so I think we're gonna use the whole thing. Okay, so onions. Next up, garlic. Okay. We're gonna chop up our garlic so that it is, relatively the same size as our onions. And we'll do the same with our serrano pepper, which will be up next. And it's all gonna go into the pan together to be sauteed. And we'll caramelize the onions a little bit before we get our bison in the pan. Okay, so we're just gonna choppy chop here. All right, so let's do up our serrano pepper, closely related to jalapeno. Now, if you like the heat, you want the kick, leave the seeds in, okay? If you don't want that kick, you can leave the pepper in, but just take the seeds out. The seeds are where all the heat are. Heat is. In my quest to keep cooking oils rotated, going with the coconut oil today. Hot pan, ready for our onions, garlic, and serrano. So we'll let that go, get some color on it, clean up in the meantime, and we're almost ready. Well, we will be almost ready to throw this together pretty soon. We're getting there. Most of the legwork's done. Now, once those are brown, we're gonna get our bison in the pan. So, 4 minutes or so in, stirring occasionally, you get to this stage, nicely caramelized, and you're ready for your bison. Now, Make sure not to just separate this all up in one shot, because we're gonna zap the heat out of the pan. I'm gonna break it up in stages, okay? So once my pan kind of recovers from dropping in this big chunk, then I'll break it up a little bit, let it recover again, break it up a little bit more. The point being, I don't want to zap all that good heat out, so that we can brown it a little bit without kind of simmering in our own juices. See, like so. So now I can see, you know, I'm ready to break it up a little bit more. Just takes a little bit of patience and care. We want to maintain that sizzle. As long as I keep hearing that sizzling noise and I don't see water kind of start collecting in the pan, I know I'm doing well. So here, as you can see, everything's all broken up. We're still in the process of getting our brown on everything, but I don't have a collection of liquid in the bottom of this pan, which means I did that successfully. Really important that we don't overload our pan, and I did well there. You can too. So we're gonna let this go for a few more minutes till it's just barely cooked through. We don't want to overcook it, and then we'll transfer this off to our casserole dish. All right, so let's finish off our ground, shall we? Just get a little bit of salt and pepper here. Himalayan pink salt. Touch of pepper. We've already got some good heat in there from those serrano peppers. And we're gonna get a nice unique flavor with just a little bit of molasses here. Stir that up and it's ready to go into the bottom of our casserole dish. All right, so our bison, you know, took us about 8 to 10 minutes. Our veggies here, they're good to go. What we want to do now, they took about 15 minutes. What I want to do is let that moisture evaporate off of them, let them dry out a little bit, because we don't want a watery mash, okay? In the meantime, let's get our bison into our casserole dish. Okay, bison goes in first. Our steamed veggies have kind of steamed themselves dry for the most part. We're going to add just a touch of butter. Okay, we'll season this as well with salt and pepper and mash away. You can mash this until it's really smooth. You could even do it in a food processor, or you can leave it a little rustic. It's up to you. Of that out of there. Spread it around. Oh, that's looking great. Beauty. So now this would go into a 375 degree oven and bake until those potatoes are nicely brown and crispy. But you know what? I'm just gonna dig into this right now for a little taste, because I know it's delicious and I couldn't wait. But anyways, that's gonna go into the oven now. There you have it, a different variation on shepherd's pie, bison shepherd's pie. Extra veggies, extra nutrition, all for you. All right, so today we rolled through 3 delicious recipes. Classic comfort foods, and we lightened them up a little bit, you know? We started off with pizza, everybody's favorite, my weakness. I can't do without a delicious pizza. But on a regular basis, wanted a little bit lightened up. Nice thin crust. That bean turned out so well. From there we moved on to mac and cheese. You know, how can you go wrong with a delicious mac and cheese? Well, we took it and we added squash in, squashed mac and cheese. And we finished it off with shepherd's pie, adding in a bunch of extra veggies, really boosting that nutrient profile. There you go. all the recipes, countrygrocer.com. They're there for you, along with hundreds of others. Thanks for being with us, and see you next time.
Country Grocer.